Hare Krishna Mata. If you give me like 2 minutes, I'll give a quick introduction. So thank you everybody for joining. Sorry for the small technical issue. So just wanted to give a couple of minute quick introduction about Her Grace Rukmini Mataji and the program today. So the program is we'll go till 12:30 for the with the discourse, and then at 12:30 we will have the weekly announcements. And today we were planning to have a small Narsimha Kirtan also for His Holiness Jai Pataka Swami Maharaj. So after the discourse and the Q&A, we will have that. So as of all, I see a couple of new people in there. So for them at least. Her Grace Rukmini Mataji, probably she's with the congregation for last 5 years, Mataji, around 5 to 7 years. You've been
I moved here in August 2014.
2014, yeah, it's nearly about 6 years. And as you will see that she's one of the persons who has very well read in our scriptures, and I would call her a walking encyclopedia, probably in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. And she's been very Mata has been very frank in sharing her knowledge about all the scriptures with everybody, and we are very thankful on that. So Mata comes from the Gaudiya Math tradition, and in the year 1991 she was given first initiation by Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, and in 2006 Srila Bhakti Vallabh Tirth Maharaj gave her the second initiation. So apart from having the job in the material world as a senior data scientist, and apart from her role and her doctorate in mathematics, and that's her background, but also she's a very important work which Mata is doing is she's working on a couple of one book called the Career Dharma, the Natural Art of Work, with Dr. Urmila Edith Best. And that book is very near to getting published, I'm thinking. And so thank you, Mata. You can take it from there. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for that kind introduction, too kind. And thank you for inviting me to speak, and in this way to purify myself by repeating what I've heard. So if I just listen in a class, then I may or may not be paying attention. But if I repeat what I heard, then at least while I'm speaking, I have to pay attention to what I'm saying. So thank you for engaging me in this way. So I'll just say my preliminary prayers. Om Jnana Timirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Shri Gaur Priyamurtaya Shrimati Bhakti Vallabh Tirtha Goswaminiti Namane. Namo Vishnu Padaya Gaur Prashthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Pramodaya Puri Goswami Namane. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachayane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshataya. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. Anchakopatrupaschat Kripasindubhaya Vachapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo. And one more prayer. So let me share my screen now. Got it? Okay. Yes, so I'll be speaking today. So the title I gave was Mercy of the Saints. And actually the topic is Dvadasha Gopal, but I didn't want to give that title because then the question is, what is Dvadasha Gopal? But so then this is what will be explained. So first, one more prayer, the Auspicious Invocation. This is from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, chapter 1, text 20 and 21. Granther Arambhe Kori Mangalacharan, Guru Vaishnav Bhagavan Tiner Smaran, In the beginning of this narration, simply by remembering the spiritual master, the devotees of the Lord, and the personality of Godhead, I have invoked their benedictions. Tiner smorane hoy bignu binashan, onayashe hoy nijobanchita puran. Such remembrance destroys all difficulties and very easily enables one to fulfill his own desires. So as I said, I was going to speak about mercy of the saints and some particular saints, the Dwadasha Gopal. So the Dwadasha Gopal, in Sanskrit, this literally means 12 cowherd boys. That's the literal translation of this phrase. And historically, these are 12 devotees in 16th century Bengal. And so from the invocation we just heard, that remembering the devotees is one of the elements that will help us have all success in spiritual life. So this is why we're trying to remember them. Interestingly, they're not known for herding cows. So then the question is, who are they? So as you mentioned, there's some new people, so I'll try to explain briefly their ontological position. So Krishna, as I believe most of us know, is the name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the All-Attractive. And the All-Attractive Supreme Personality of Godhead expands himself in many forms, in fact in infinitely many forms, because God being infinite has infinite everything as much as possible. He has a first expansion who is like a second self, that is Balaram, and much could be said about Balaram, but what I'll say today, which is relevant to this question, is Akhanda Guru Tattva. He's the undivided ontological principle of Guru. So that means that Guru means teacher or instructor. So he's the origin of all teaching and instruction. He's the root of all teaching and instruction. And so in order to be Guru, there's two important qualities. One is mercy, the mercy that leads the Guru to have compassion and to instruct us. So instruction are the two main characteristics of Guru. So Krishna is transcendent. He lives eternally in the eternal transcendental realm, Golok Vrindavan, which is outside of the material plane. And this itself is a deep topic. So instead of trying to go into that deep topic, we can just picture it, that Krishna is in the Golok Vrindavan, and each of these little bubbles is one space-time, one universe, one material universe. So that's one way to picture it. So Krishna is enjoying himself in this plane where everything is centered on his enjoyment. And in this material plane, this is where we stay, and so people like myself, everything is centered on my own enjoyment. I'm self-centered. So Goloka Vrindavan is where everything is Krishna-centered. That's maybe an easy definition of Goloka Vrindavan. Then cowherd boys. So these are not just ordinary cowherd boys who are, singing home, home on the range. These cowherd boys are engaged in eternal loving pastimes. They're friends of Krishna and Balaram, and they're herding cows. So here's Krishna, here's Balaram, and there's bunch more boys who are similar age, and they're all herding cows in Goloka Vrindavan, in the forest. So they get together and go to the forest and have fun and play games and watch the cows and calves. And they're his pals. So then there was a descent of mercy of Lord Caitanya, pictured here. So he appeared in 1486 from 1486 to 1534 AD in India, and this was a descent of Krishna from Goloka Vrindavan to manifest on this planet as his own devotee. And he had several purposes for descending, but the main purpose that we are interested in here is that he came to teach devotion, and he brought along his associates to help him in order to do that. So his associates also are with him in Goloka Vrindavan eternally, and then from time to time when he manifests here, then they also come and manifest here. And so we just mentioned his first expansion, who is his second self, Balaram. So when he manifested at this time, he manifested as Nityananda. So that he is the most merciful. His whole goal is to have mercy on the living entities. There's no limit whatsoever to his mercy. And so he appeared 12 years before Mahaprabhu. So in when Krishna is playing his loving pastimes, Balaram is his older brother, and then he's a week older in Krishna's pastimes. And in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, Nityananda Prabhu appeared in 1474, so 12 years before Mahaprabhu, and then he also remained on this world several years after Mahaprabhu, so 1474 to 1541. And so finally we can say, who are Dwadasha Gopal? The Dwadasha Gopal are the descents of the 12 cowherd boys. Well, 12 of the cowherd boys. There's infinitely many cowherd boys, but 12 of the cowherd boys assisted Nityananda Prabhu. So Nityananda Prabhu was preaching mainly in Bengal. Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu both appeared in Bengal originally, and then Mahaprabhu then, when he entered life as a monk, a sannyasi, then he moved to Orissa, but he felt that preaching in Bengal was very important, so he made sure that Nityananda Prabhu remained in Bengal. So here pictured, this is, this whole thing is India, and here is West Bengal, and at the time of Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, there was the whole of Bengal. So in the early 20th century, the British divided Bengal because Bengalis are troublemakers, which I can say since I'm also a troublemaker, being a Bengali. So this part here is Bangladesh, and modern day Bangladesh, but at that time all of this was Bengal. And so these Dwadasha Gopal, these 12 cowherd boys, are 12 devotees who preached Mahaprabhu's Caitanya. Mahaprabhu is another name of Caitanya. Mahaprabhu's mission of spreading the holy name. That's the main practice of devotion in this age, is the congregational chanting of the holy name. And so these 12 cowherd boys helped him to do that. So that's why they're called cowherd boys, but their main activities are preaching activities and other pastimes of Chaitanya and Nityananda. Now the sources for this, what we know about these, the main sources are Gaur Gana, that I'm going to quote, are Gaur Gana Desh Deepika, which is by Kavi Karnapur. Kavi Karnapur was another contemporary of Chaitanya and Nityananda in the younger generation. So was a child when they were in their prime, and he wrote this book Gaur Gana Desh Deepika, which is who's who of Chaitanya's pastimes. So this is a cover of one edition of that book in Sanskrit. This is a Sanskrit book, and so here is pictured Goloka Vrindavan. So here's Krishna playing his pastimes, and then here is this is a pastime in Bengal in the 16th century, Mahaprabhu's pastimes. This is Chaitanya and Nityananda, and so this book gives the key of how the eternal associates who are eternally playing in these pastimes, how they descended historically and became different personalities in these pastimes. And there's also many things about these personalities in the Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, which is which is a main biography of Chaitanya and also his associates, and also in the purports and the Anubhashya and there have been several commentaries on the Chaitanya Charitamrita which collect more information about them. And Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, has compiled that information and also translated the information that was compiled, for instance, by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada in the earlier commentaries. And there's more sources compiled. So basically all of these and more are compiled in one place in So Swami Bibi Tirtha, that's Srila Bhakti Vallabh Tirtha Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, in this book, Sri Caitanya, His Life and Associates, which is an abridged English translation of his original Bengali book, and excerpts from this translation. So, so these are excerpts of an abridgment, so they're not complete. These are at this website, which was originally compiled by Srila Prabhupada's disciple Purdas, who unfortunately is departed this world a long time ago, but has done a lot of work to bring these many different literatures, make them available. So now finally we can say, who are these 12 cowherd boys? They are Abhiram Thakur, Dhananjay Pandit, Gauridas Pandit, Kalakrishna Das, Kamalakara Pipalai, Kolavecha Sridhar, Mahesh Pandit, Nagar Purushottama, Parameshwari Das, Purushottama Das, Sundarananda Thakur, and Udharan Datta. And the reason that I picked this subject for today is that it is the disappearance day today of two of these Vaishnavas, Mahesh Pandit and Udharan Datta. And so we hear about these devotees generally on their, in some cases it's the appearance day, but often the appearance day is not known, and so often on their disappearance days. And for some of these, neither is known, so then there's not necessarily an occasion for when we hear about them. So that was why I wanted to introduce who they are and just say briefly something about all of them. And so I'll just say their identities. So this is from Gorgana Desh Deepika. So each of them, when they came with Nityananda, they had one name, and they're a descent of a cowherd boy from Golok Vrindavan. So then they have another name. And so then if we happen to know anything about those cowherd boys, then that can help us, nourish us in remembering them. That whichever one is more familiar, if we remember both, then that can help us to remember them. So Abhiram Thakur is Sridham, Dhananjay Pandit is Vasudama, Gauridas Pandit is Subala, Kalakrishna Das is Lavanga, Kamalakar Pippalai is Mahabala, Kolavech Sridhar is Kusumasava, Mahesh Pandit is Mahabahu, Nagar Purushottam is Damagopa, Parameshwari Das is Arjun. Now this is Arjun Sakha, Krishna's cowherd boy pal, not who is different from Arjun in the Bhagavad Gita, who most of us hear about first. And then Purushottam Das, who is Stoka Krishna, Sundarananda Thakur, who is Sudama, Udharan Datta Thakur, who is Subahu. And so I will say a little bit about, I'll try to say something about Udharan Datta Thakur and Mahesh Pandit, and if I have any time, so there's some interesting pastimes of some of the rest of them, but I will see what happens depending on time. So now I believe there's another half hour or so left in, is that right? I'm pretty sure that's usual. So now I'll start with Udharan Datta Thakur. So let me begin. Where are my, look at my file here. Okay, so Udharan Datta Thakur appeared in the town of Saptagram in 1481. So this is in Bengal, and his parents were Shrikar and Bhadravati, and they belonged to the gold merchant class. It's called Suvarna Banik, and so an interesting thing is that Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami himself also appeared in this same class. And so Vaishnavas can appear in any class and in any occupation. So there's no restriction on that one has to have appeared in the class of a brahmana, or that one has to have some previous some previous dynasty where people had been uh, exclusively engaged in religious pursuits. And devotion is independent, and she can come to anyone at any time. So, uh, and in fact, instead of the family being required to have some prerequisite for a person to be a devotee, rather anybody can become a devotee, and then that purifies and glorifies their family. And this, and it also purifies and glorifies this occupation, the occupation of the gold merchant, and it purifies their parents and everything. So there's no restriction of any kind. So so as I mentioned, there's several sources, and there's another biography of Sri Caitanya called Chaitanya Bhagavat, which was written by Vrindavan Das Thakur. So this describes that Nityananda Prabhu at one time was staying at Kardaha. Kardaha is where he lived during his married life, which was after Mahaprabhu took sannyas. So Nityananda Prabhu came to Kardaha. He was preaching all over Bengal, like he was traveling constantly. So at one point he stayed in Kardaha, and then he went to Saptagram along with all the people with him. And then he stayed at Udharandatta Thakur's house, which was on the banks of the Triveni River. And then so one of the appellations or names of Datta Thakur is Parma Patita Pavana, the most fallen, the deliverer of the most fallen. So anyone who takes shelter of Udharandatta can quickly get the service of Lord Nityananda, and then from that they can get the service of Lord Caitanya, and then from that they can get devotion, which is the supreme goal of human life, is to have devotion. So we too can go to Goloka Vrindavan and play with Krishna. If someone likes, they can play as a cowherd boy, or if they like, they can play in so many different ways as his parents, or even as cows, or trees, or whatever we like, or cowherd girls, however we feel like playing. And the way that we do that is by following in the footsteps of the devotees who are already his loving associates. So he managed. He was a manager for a big landholder in Naihati, and so then again, this also can help us remember. So this is someone who is a eternal pure associate. So, and he came specifically for the purpose of helping Nityananda Prabhu, and then he was engaged in this occupation of managing a landed estate. So that this gives us an important clue that we cannot tell who somebody else may be by their family descent, or their occupation, or how they've lived their life up to the point that we met them. So it's not like people have something stamped on their forehead that says, "I'm an eternal associate of Krishna." So anyone can be doing anything, apparently, and they could be an eternal associate. So this tells us that we can how we can treat other devotees, not based on some external designation, such as, how long have they been in Krishna consciousness, or how long has their family been in Krishna consciousness, because these are things that we can't actually see. So you couldn't actually see that, he's been a pure devotee eternally. You can only see that you might meet him, when he was engaged in his duties, and you would have no idea. So he possessed a vast fortune. However, he renounced all sense gratification. So that's another characteristic so sometimes people assume that, that everyone has to be renounced, and the degree of renunciation may indicate that one is more advanced. So he did renounce, meaning that he didn't use his wealth for himself, but externally he actually had a vast fortune. So engaging everything in Krishna's service, this is yukta vairagya. This is an important principle of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya that our Srila Rupa Goswami, our teacher in our lineage, has enunciated, that we are not attached to things in order to use them for ourselves. Neither are we averse to them, because in order either to say that they're bad, or to say that we're renounced. Actually, that's being attached to something called the opulence of renunciation, and it is one of Krishna's 6 opulences. So he's even the owner of the opulence of renunciation. So I could be walking by Chase Bank and say, I renounce that bank. Well, I don't actually own that bank. I don't even own like one stock in that bank. So, it's not mine to renounce. So, but instead I can have an account in Chase Bank, and I can be the steward, and use whatever money I have there for Krishna service. So this is something that Uddharan Datta Thakur exemplified. And so then, for instance, when Nityananda Prabhu came, then Uddharan Datta Thakur was able to take care of him very nicely, and so he cooked for him. So there's a quote, Bhaktar Drabba Prabhu Kori Kori Khai, Abhaktar Drabba Pane Ulati Nachai. The Lord grabs the offering given him by his devotee. That which is given to him by a non-devotee is of no interest to him. So we can understand that Uddharan Datta Thakur gave him opulent prasadam because that was within his means. And so in this case, we can see that the prasadam may have been very opulent, but that's not actually the reason that Lord Nityananda Prabhu was so greedy for his offering that he grabbed it. Because in another case, we have that we know from the pastimes of Sri Krishna that he went to the house he was invited by Duryodhan, who was the king and had a palace and had prepared a magnificent feast, but that opulent feast was of no interest to him. And then he went to Vidura, who was a very poor, simple person, and but who was a lover of Krishna, his devotee. And so Vidura's wife was feeding him. All they had to feed him, they actually didn't even know he was coming. So all they had to feed him was some shak, spinach, and some bananas. And Vidura's wife was so overjoyed that Krishna had come to their place that she was peeling the bananas to give to Krishna, and she was not paying attention, so she gave him the peel, and then she threw away the banana part instead of the other way around. And Krishna was so delighted that he was eating that peel. Now, I learned recently from one devotee that there is a way to eat the banana peel, but usually it's cooked first. So, anyway, so there's still today a deity of Shadbhuj, the 6-armed Mahaprabhu, that Uddharan Datta Thakur worshipped. And so these 6 arms encompass the descent of Mahaprabhu as Caitanya, as Krishna, and as Rama. That was his earlier descent as the ideal king. And there's also a deity of Nityananda, and he also has Radha Govinda and Shalagram Shila. So if one is fortunate to go to Saptagram, then one can visit that place. So he left this world in 1552, and then it was on this day. This is the anniversary of that day. So in the interest of time, I will next talk about Mahesa Pandita. So instead of a picture of Mahesa Pandita, I have these deities of Radha Gopinath and Ananga Manjari. And so hopefully I'll be able to tell you about these deities. These deities were established by Mahesa Pandita. And so there were 7 main temples established in Vrindavan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to unearth Vrindavan as the place of Krishna's pastimes, which were almost lost. And then he ordered some of his disciples and associates to go and to renovate and excavate these places of pastimes that had been lost, and also to build temples to Radha Krishna there. And so this temple of Radha Gopinath was built by Mahesa Pandita. Now, actually, later, after the time of Mahaprabhu himself and of these associates, since India was under Muslim rule at various times, the Muslim rulers wanted to destroy the temples and desecrate the deities, so they were taken away to safety. But anyway, so I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me first talk about Mahesa Pandita. All right. So again, he was Krishna's cowherd friend Mahabahu, and his house was first in Mashipur, which is across the river from Jirat on the eastern bank of the Ganga. The Ganga flows through Bengal, but then that place eventually fell into the river. Basically, the Ganga has moved many times. She's moving constantly, and so that place was flooded. So then his it's called a Shripat, the place where he lived and had his pastimes, his home, basically, his historical home. That place was moved to Belidanda. And then, unfortunately, that place also fell into the river. And in fact, the whole village was destroyed. So again, his place was moved. And now it is in Palpara, which is near Chaktaha. So this was in 1927. That was that, and that's where it still is, fortunately, today. And so this is in Panchnagar. And on the other hand, well, sorry. So I should mention that Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it's also in the English Chaitanya Charitamrita purport, that this place is in Kanghal Puli. So if you go to Bengal, so I haven't been to any of these places, but if you take some time to go to Bengal, then Chaitanya Charitamrita is wonderful in that if you read the purports, then it tells you where a place is, and also even in many cases the train station and how you get off the train station. So this is so that we can visit those places and have the mercy of the Vaishnavas who lived there or departed from there and so forth. So he was one of 3 brothers. or at least some people say that he was one of three brothers, Jagadish Pandit, Hiranya Pandit, and Mahesh Pandit. And he also, there in his Sripad, there's also deities of all the three main deities of Krishna who are in Vrindavan. There's also in his Sripad Sri Gopinath, Madan Mohan, Radha Govinda, and Shalagram Shila. So, as many of us may know, there's three main parts to the practice of devotion. There is sambandha, which is understanding who is Krishna, who am I, what is my eternal relationship, the ontological position of all of these, who is the Lord, who are the living entities, who are these expansions. So that's the beginning step. And so there is a presiding deity of Krishna who is in charge of each of those steps. So that's the first step. The presiding deity is Madan Mohan. And there is also I mentioned that several Goswamis had established temples in Vrindavan. So the person who established this deity of Madan Mohan is Sanatana Goswami, Radha Madan Mohan. And there's also a long section of the Caitanya Charitamrita about Sambandha Gyan. It's perhaps perhaps the longest section. It's several chapters of Caitanya Charitamrita, where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was telling Sanatana Goswami about Sambandha Gyan. So that's one main place where this is explained. And then also these Goswamis, when they went together to Vrindavan, one of their tasks, besides excavating the pastime places and building temples, was to write literatures. So they themselves wrote literatures, and then Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he also went there and he wrote the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and that's the main place where we can find out about Sambandha Gyan in many other chapters, so he found out from them. Then Abhideya is the practice of devotion. So from Sambandha Gyan we learn Jiber Sharup Hai, Krishna Nitya Dash, that the eternal position of the living entity is as a servant of Krishna. So one way or another, somehow or another, we're serving Krishna either directly or indirectly, and we can attain the highest bliss when, being aware of that fact, we actually cultivate serving him directly in a loving relationship. He's loving us eternally, and he has a special corner of his heart for each of us, with a special relationship with each of us that he has with no other living being. Like his relationship is with every single living being is completely unique. So then the question is, so there is a special relationship that I have with him. So how do I cultivate that relationship? Why do I not know that now? That's because I'm covered with avidya, or the idea that I'm the separate enjoyer and everything is centered around me. So how do I purify myself of avidya, and how do I cultivate devotion? So as I said, that devotion descends independently. She comes by her mercy, but I have to make an effort, and that effort is practice, sadhana. So that practice is the second part of the teaching of devotion, Abhideya, and the deity is Radha Govinda, who is established by Srila Rupa Goswami. So he's the acharya of Abhideya. Now the third part is, what is the goal? The goal is this pure love, this eternal loving relationship, prayojana. And interestingly, the acharya of that is Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, and there's something about in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about him. And there's also, and he's also written literatures about the pure pastimes in Goloka Vrindavan itself. And so we can learn from that. However, interestingly, the deity of this prayojan is Radha Gopinath. And so these deities were installed by Mahesa Pandita. So I have here, let me Well, let's say more about Radha Gopinath. Let me first say, so I told about how he was established. There's more in the Janava Devi. So the deity of Srimati Radharani, whom you see here, the deity wasn't originally matching. So Janavadevi had established this deity of Srimati Radharani, whom you see here on Gopinath's left side, and then here on his right side is the deity of Ananga Manjari, who is the younger sister of Srimati Radharani, and Janavadevi, who was one of the two wives of Nityananda Prabhu, is herself the descent of Ananga Manjari. So she also caused this deity to also accompany Gopinath, and she herself, when she departed, she merged into this deity. So where is my? Ah, well, this is why I'm sorry. This was Madhu Pandit. I'm sorry. I'm mixed up. All right. Sorry about that. That was why it was not coming up. All right. So now, with a little bit of time, we have a little bit of time left. I can say a little bit about the other Kahur boys. So Abhiram Thakur. Well, actually, since there's not time to, I think, talk about all of them, I can say a little bit about Kolavet Sridhar. So this is another example where the Lord, what he cares about is the devotion and rather than the opulence. So Kolavet Sridhar was a very poor person who basically he made his living by selling very cheap vegetables in the market, and he would use half of his what he earned for worshiping the Ganga, and with the other half he would barely maintain himself. He would be in a hut, that the roof leaked, and then he had a rusty pot. Of course the pot became rusty because the roof leaked, and he would sell his vegetables for very little money, basically barely above the cost, because he wanted to be honest, and he could barely maintain himself. And then, so he was selling his vegetables in the village of Navadvip when Mahaprabhu was a young boy. And so, yeah, Mahaprabhu, when he was a young boy, he was very naughty. So even though these vegetables were being sold at almost at cost, Mahaprabhu would tease Kolavet Sridhar and say, "Oh, give it to me, for half of the price that you're asking." And Kulavit Sridhar would say, I can't give it to you for any less. This is the price. And then Mahaprabhu would snatch the vegetables away from him, and then Kalavich. So this reminds us of the pastime of Krishna as the butter thief, that Krishna would snatch the butter away from the gopis, and then they would get to complain about him. But actually, the cowherd women who were making butter, they actually were really relishing his naughtiness. As is anyone hearing that sound besides me? Anyway, so they were relishing his naughtiness, and so they were actually so inwardly they were happy that this butter was pleasing to Krishna, and outwardly they also were happy that they got to complain about him, because there is some rasa, some juice in being able to complain about this naughty person. So similarly, Kolavet Sridhar, outwardly it may seem that he was quarreling with Mahaprabhu every day. He was, at this time, as a child, he was named Nimai, that this young boy was teasing him and quarreling with him. So, and then he was complaining that you're robbing me. But we know that actually how much he really relished this pastime, because then he was so then, as we said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came as a devotee. So most of the time he was not revealing that he was God himself, Krishna. And if anyone said this, then he would cover his ears and say Vishnu, Vishnu, and would not want to hear that, because that would interfere with his mood as a devotee. He was trying to teach people how to be a devotee, and the idea, oh well, let's see, the first thing I should know if I'm a devotee is that I'm not God. So he wouldn't be able to teach by his example if people were seeing him as God. But he did reveal himself during the 21-hour pastime. Shat Prahar is 7 periods of 3 hours each, the 21-hour pastime. When he actually revealed himself, he sat on the throne and manifested himself as Narayan Vishnu, the Supreme Lord. And then he was asking devotees to ask him for benedictions. So then here this very poor person, and he was calling them one by one. Bring this person to me, and I will give them a blessing. So he was asking Kolavet Sridhar, who was very poor, if he wanted the benediction of wealth. But of course, a devotee knows that this wealth is useless, because wealth is material, and whatever position he had, he didn't need it for himself. But what he asked for is that I want that young boy, that charming young boy who was always stealing vegetables from me, I want to always eternally see him and relish that same pastime again. So that's Kolavech Sridhar. And another important person is Gauridas Pandit. So I don't have time to go into it, but for instance, we know that the disciplic succession that is printed in the books is a Bhagavat Parampara. That means that it is by Shiksha, who is the main instructing person in each line. However, our Diksha line, which is the Pancharatrik, the ceremony of initiation, that Diksha line, Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Diksha line comes from Gauridas Pandit originally. So Gauridas Pandit lived in Ambika Kalna, and Mahaprabhu and Nityananda came themselves to visit him. Mahaprabhu rowed a boat himself, and that oar can still be seen there. And then they came to visit him for lunch, and then he didn't want them to leave. So he asked, and then he basically was not letting them leave. And they kept saying, okay, and they were smiling, and it was all very relishable, but they were saying that we have to go. And then he said, no, you can't go. And then finally they said that they manifested deities of themselves, and the deities looked just like them. And then they said, okay, you can choose whether we can stay here or the deities can stay here. And it is said that actually he chose for them to stay there. So anyway, so the you can see those deities. They're some of the oldest deities of Chaitanya and Mahaprabhu that you can still see today in Ambika Kalna. And Gauridas Pandit was also the uncle of Janava Devi, who is the Vasudha and Janava were the two wives of Nityananda Prabhu. So we don't have time to go into more, but there's many more pastimes, and I can put up the website again. Here is the website where you can see more pastimes of all these 12 Gopals, and I pray that they will, despite the many imperfections, they will have mercy on me, and I couldn't touch on their glories, but that they will bless me, and also that all of you will bless me with your association and mercy. Hare
Krishna Mata. Thank you for the great discourse. Mata, I had one question. Is like you'll be able to share the presentation with us, or like probably email it out, or
Yeah, sure.
okay.
Except I should correct that that error, and I'm not quite sure how I did that. Sorry about that.
Sure. I don't see any questions in the chat, but in case somebody wants to ask a quick question, please unmute yourself and go ahead if you had any comments or questions, please.
Mata, when I'm hearing about Uddhananda Pandit, what you're saying, a very beloved devotee of Nityananda Prabhu. Actually, my father name was also, initiation name was Uddhananda Nitai Das. So everybody asking me all the time, what does this Uddhananda mean? So today I'm very clear with your class. Who's the Uddhananda Pandit? What is the connection with Mahaprabhu Nityananda Prabhu? Thank you for that.
Thank you. That's very glorious. And if your kids have any questions about any of the other Gopals, I could also.
Still asking. Ask your question. Don't open.
Yeah, but I forgot.
Abhinav. Who is Abhinav? Who is? You have a question by looking your list. And what is that question? Who is Abhinav? Abhinav?
Yeah, Abhinav Thakur, who's that?
She goes. There is another your list. If you see, could you show your list?
Yes.
From there, he have a question. Who is that? I told you, why don't you ask Rukmini Mataji about that? Could you show the list of the name of different devotee with connection with Mahaprabhu? Wait.
So this list?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it? What is it? Which one?
Abhinav Thakur.
Dhananjaya Pandit, Gauradasha, Kala Krishna, Kamalakara, quickly. Kolavicha, Mahesha, Nagara, Parameshwari, Purushottam, Sudarshananda, Uddhananda Datta. Yeah, he asking what is the Kamalakara, the who is the covered by Mahabala. Could you tell something about the Kamalakara Pipalai, the Mahabala, who is the covered boy?
Yes.
Could you tell little bit something?
Yes. Let me go to that. Go to my list here. All right, so he appeared in 1492, and his father was a rich landlord. He came in the Sundarban area, in a village known as Kalijuli, and Sundarban is it's also famous as it's the where the Ganga River comes to the ocean and breaks into many different streams. So there's many different small islands, and it's famous for the Bengal tigers. So the people who live there are certainly brave people because they know how to live with tigers. So this Kamalakar Pippalai had a younger brother named Srinidhi Pippalai, and they were Rada Brahmins. And then he moved to a village called Mahesh, and there there is a famous Jagannath deity there. So I don't know if you ever have a chance to go there, then you could visit that deity. So so he actually left home and went from Kalijuli, the village where he was born, to this village of Mahesh. And then his younger brother Nidupati went looking for him and tried to bring him back, but then he wouldn't come back. So then Nidupati also moved to Mahesh. So there are two brothers like you. You guys are two brothers, you and Diptiman. And so they still have descendants there. Their family is now. So actually, this is a century ago. A century ago, their family was like 20 families there, and there may be more of them now, 20 households. And another story that Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told, and it's in the purport to Chaitanya Charitamrita, is that there was a renunciate, a monk named Dhruvananda, who went on a pilgrimage to Puri, and he wanted to offer Lord Jagannath a bhog that he himself had cooked, but as you know, that the pandas in Jagannath Puri, they're very strict in many ways, and so that would be very difficult to get them to accept the bhog that he himself had cooked. So Jagannath himself appeared to this monk Dhruvananda in a dream, and told him to go to that village of Mahesh on the Ganga, and that there was that deity of Jagannath there that was being worshipped by Kamalakar Pippalai, and then he would be able to cook there and make an offering. And so then when he came to Mahesh, then he saw that Jagannath, Balaram, and Subhadra were floating in the Ganga River. He picked them up out of the water, and then when he started worshiping them, and then when he wanted someone to continue worshiping after he would leave the world, then Jagannath came in his dream and told him that this person Kamalakar Pippalai in this village, or actually this he wasn't yet at the village. This person Kamalakar Pippalai in the village of Kalijuli, he can come and take over the service. So this is the actual reason that Kamalakar Pippalai left his original village, was to come to Mahesh, the village of Mahesh, and to continue the worship of those deities of Jagannath. And then, as we said, that then their whole family descendants they're still there.
Where is that place, the Mahesh village of Mahesh, where the Jagannath deity is there? Where is that place?
Yeah, so it says it is about 2.5 miles from this Sherampur railway station in Hooghly. So I don't know Bengali geography, but hopefully that means.
Okay, that is West Bengal. I mean, you're talking West Bengal, huh? Hooghly.
Hooghly is in Karnataka.
No. This is Hooghly, Prabhu. This is
Hooghly. Okay.
Yeah, this
Rampur. Yeah, this is Calcutta.
In
Got it.
Yeah, West Bengal. Like the Ganga herself is called the Hooghly when she comes to Kolkata. So maybe someone who knows more geography would.
Yeah, Naveen Prabhu, you had some comments. You want to go ahead, Prabhu?
Yeah, I mean, of course, all these details are there very elaborately in Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Thank you.
There's one comment I had was, okay, it's interesting. General, when Krishna Balaram come, or Ram Lakshman comes, usually Guru Tattva leaves first, or Lakshman left, Balaram left, then Krishna. But in this case, Chaitanya Leela, Nityananda Prabhu stayed back. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only did 48 years. He came later than Nityananda Mahaprabhu, but he's left early. Nityananda Mahaprabhu 67 years, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 48 years. But I never read any significance. So I know you, when you were reading, did you find anything? Why is that reason? Gaur Leela, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left early, and then Nityananda Mahaprabhu, which is Guru, used to leave first, but he stayed.
Well, just that he was preaching all over Bengal, and you know that was extensive, and it needed a long time. Yeah, and so that continued after Mahaprabhu became a sannyasi. Then he was preaching in Bengal, and then he married very late in life, and then he also had a son who's called Virachandra. Virabhadra Virachandra, and daughter Ganga. So, so his children were from Vasudha, and then and so then he himself made many disciples, and then after his departure, his younger wife Janava took care of those disciples and made more disciples. So there was a lot to do to spread Mahaprabhu's mission, and Bengal was a very big place. So that would be the reason that I know. And when he disappeared, he merged into the deity of Bankim Rai, and so that's where we know the date of his disappearance is from the oral tradition in that temple of Bankim Rai.
Yeah, it's very interesting. General, Guru comes first and prepares for Krishna, and then he leaves first. Krishna leaves later. Mind this purpose different. And at the same time, since you said it's a 12 Dwadasas, these 12 Krishnas, our boys, came in Gaudi. But when you see branches of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lineage, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has this counting 90 of them. There are so many of disciples. They carried the stick. 19 Gaudadesha, and then 37 in Jagannath Puri. There are few in Varanasi. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, 3 branches. And then same thing with Nityananda Mahaprabhu. He has a 67 star. First is his first son, Virabhadra. And then eventually Advaita has 36, and then Gadadhara Pandita has 33, like that. There's so many branches are there. But all of them, none of the branches are started by these 12 Mahajans, 12 friends. But they were part of these 300 plus. That was a little interesting.
Right, because they're all considered to be part of the branches of Nityananda Prabhu himself. So they're considered to be sub-branches. Like there's, sub-branches and sub-branches.
That was 2 interesting comments.
Yes, thank you so much, Prabhu. I didn't know that.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. So we'll move on with the announcements. Again, thank you very much, Rukmini Mataji, for the amazing discourse. And if you can share that presentation, that would be great. And so the next part of the program, I don't have many announcements. The only, I think, announcement is next Thursday is one of the auspicious days. It's the Sankranti. And a lot of in India and South India, it's like it's considered that's when I think Mataji also can correct me. This is when the sun takes a different course. Is that right, Mata? Like they say from the southerly direction, it takes a northerly.
Southern hemisphere into the northern hemisphere.
Yeah, that's all I want to know. But yeah, it's a very auspicious day, and wish you all a happy Sankranti, like advance happy Sankranti. And as Hari mentioned in the chat, like the book distribution course, we will have it next week. And I think today's discourse we will close with the Narsima prayers, and Kalindi Mataji has kindly consented. And this is primarily for we are praying for the health of His Holiness Jaipatak Swami Maharaj and his servants. And Mata, you can take over. I'll go ahead.
Also the Diptiman birthday, could you guys bless? Sorry, you could Diptiman come. Yes, they are waiting for you. Come on, Dandavat Pranam. Are, where are you? I don't see you. Where are you? Dandavat. Panchakan Papida. Patitanam.
Hare
Very well. Yeah, good to hear from him. It's been a while.
Here. Oh, wait. Hold on, Prabhu. Just little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Offer everybody. Here.
Happy birthday.
Please take the prasada. Actually, what happened? We have Chaitanya Leela every morning with our beloved Guru Maharaj from Mayapur. But he's because for health, not so much Zoom he doing, but he doing for special. So mercifully, they getting most of the time with Guru Maharaj. So today morning, I have to do everything because for Guru Maharaj Zoom. So in front of him, he cut cake, he done the offer, everything he did. So therefore, my birthday is early because for Zoom. That the Guru Maharaj Ju. And yes, about Nishikanta prayer, if you have no time, that's okay, Prabhuji, because you told
No,
that
I think everybody is there.
So-
Manta. Go ahead.
So you
Yeah.
want to give an update, Mataji, on Maharaj a little bit?
Yeah, oh, Guru Maharaj, yeah.
Yeah, health, yeah.
Yeah, tomorrow is the last day. Nitu, just stop harmonium. Tomorrow
Also,
is
we
the,
can't see you.
oh yeah.
We can't see your face.
Yeah, tomorrow is the last day of Monday, like 4 days from Thursday start. So if tomorrow also he go good, hopefully he do good, then he is out of totally in danger. And he is in Mayapur and he doing the Ayurvedic treatment and gargling all the steaming water, and with that he going through nicely with Krishna's mercy, and devotee doing Akhanda Kirtan, whoever can do whatever, and with my family whatever I can, with my kids I'm doing like this.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mata. We can have a brief kirtan, Mata. That will be nice.
Okay, yeah. It's not like you have to do, but if you don't.
No, go ahead, Mata. Go ahead.
Okay, Nita started.
Hare Krishna Mata. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And with this, we'll close today's Sunday Feast program with a prayer, with the Vaishnava prayers. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa
Because in the
sindhubhyacha padidanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo.